G'day there guys, it's your main man Markee, and welcome back to another episode of r/AmITheA, where on our first story today, OP pulls their daughter out of their wedding because of their massive anxiety. Now, if you love today's content, I want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy. Let's go. Am I the arsehole for pulling my daughter out of a wedding? So the short story for background is that I have bad anxiety that runs from okay to severe. I had a miscarriage several months ago, and that really hasn't helped at all. Back in January, our friends asked if our daughter could be in their wedding as flower girl. I was thrilled about it, and we of course said yes. This was before the miscarriage. Since then, it became harder for me to focus on things, and I admittedly was a little flaky with planning on getting together with her for flower girl practice and things like that. I had a huge bout of anxiety right before their wedding, and I refused to go or let my girls out of my sight. My husband was in the wedding party, and he wanted to take her anyway, but I told him he wasn't taking my daughter, and they would have to understand. She's just a flower girl. It's not a big deal, and I just couldn't handle it. The bride is furious with me now. She called to scream at me and tell me how I was such a cow for using my anxiety as an excuse to not come to the wedding and keep my daughter away. She accused me of wasting her time and money. I told her she needed to read on mental illness and hung up on her. Now everyone's mad at me. My own husband agreed with her calling me a cow and said I was rude and inconsiderate and that I caused problems between him and the groom because of the little tantrum the bride threw. I don't owe anyone an explanation for my illness, and I don't think I'm the one at fault, especially when they know how not myself I've been. My mum agrees that they are acting entitled to my time and to my daughter's, and that they need to let it go. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I know I pulled my daughter back at the last minute, and for that, I see how they could think I'm an asshole. But I feel they knew very well about my condition and should have tried to understand. Now in the comments, you're the asshole. There was no reason your husband couldn't have taken her to be the flower girl since he was in the wedding. Get therapy. Get it now. Your daughter is not your emotional support animal, and you don't want to have this kind of dependency on your kid. This is exactly what brought her to asshole territory. Exactly. I have severe anxiety, so it's not like I don't understand how debilitating it is. But you never get to put your disorder on another person. Certainly not a child. Exactly. You're on a fast track to building a hell of a lot of resentment in your daughter, or instilling your illness into your daughter, / creating an extremely unhealthy and emotionally abusive relationship with her, or both. This is so important. I said this in my separate comment, but my mum was so anxious about my safety that she didn't allow me to hang out with friends until I was 15, and my therapist basically forced her to allow me to. And now at 21, I have so much trouble making and keeping friends because I never got to learn to interact with people on a friendly level, and it's almost 100% my mum's fault for purposefully preventing those important human interactions just to ease her own anxieties. If OP doesn't shape up and start realizing her child isn't her crutch and that she needs to figure out how to cope on her own, not only is she going to have a child who can't function as an adult, but she is also going to have a child who holds a lot of resentment for her preventing her enjoying her childhood. You're the asshole. Your anxiety is your problem, not your daughter's, not your husband's, not your friend's problem. You took away something your kid was probably looking forward to. You blew off a friend, and you told your husband that you didn't trust him to take care of his child for the wedding. And you don't even seem sorry about it. You seem to think that the bride is being unreasonable here? Please go to therapy. Like, how is the bride entitled here? Her wedding isn't about you or what you have gone through. She was there for you when you needed it, but when it came down to her special day, you kept away 2 people that you knew were important for her day. You seem to think that everything should revolve around your anxiety. As a person with severe anxiety, that isn't how it works, and people will definitely start to resent you if you try to act like it is. You're the asshole. You know you're in the wrong, and you're asking us for validation? Your husband could have taken her, and you didn't have to go. Frankly, he's probably also upset that she is your daughter and not both of yours in this case. He's also a parent and also has a vote. What are you doing to combat your illness? Your family is suffering, and I'm sure they want to do the work with you, but you also have to do it for yourself. That part stuck out like a sore thumb to me too. If husband is her daughter's father, I'd be very upset about that phrasing too. It is a huge glaring issue. Their marriage is probably doomed, to be honest. Mum is already making possessive remarks about the child, a clue of future intent, perhaps. Our next post is titled, "Am I the Arsehole? I insulted my wife in front of my family." I and my wife have been married for 8 years. She told me she wants to be a stay-at-home wife when we got married because she didn't like her job that much. Don't mind me putting emphasis on wife because I screwed that up last time. I was okay with it since I earned enough for the both of us. My mum had to drop out of school because she lost her parents at a young age and she had to do manual labor to send her siblings to school. The Indian government then did not have any concessions for orphaned kids. She had the choice to either go to school herself or send her siblings to school. Because of this, she dropped out in the 8th grade, at 14 years old. Both her siblings got employed in really good companies, and they took care of her since then until she got married. My dad passed away just 2 years after their marriage, and she had to take care of me on her own. Her siblings did help, but she worked 2 jobs along with that to support us both. Edit, herself, and me. I was an only child. My father died while she was pregnant with me. Today we had a family get-together. My mum, her siblings, each of their kids and daughters/sons-in-laws, and grandkids, etc. After having dinner, my wife said we needed to leave early because our kids have to go to basketball, swimming, and also private tuitions tomorrow. My kids were begging her to let them stay for a little longer. My mum asked my wife if they can miss 1 day of practice to spend time with family, since the kids also must have missed their cousins after not having met them for nearly a year. My wife retaliated, saying an illiterate woman wouldn't know the importance of education and extracurricular activities. My mum was clearly hurt and apologized for overstepping. I told my wife that literacy clearly hasn't taught her, my wife, basic manners. My wife got mad at me for insulting her in front of everyone and went back home with the kids. She is not even picking my calls up or replying to my texts. Am I the arsehole? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the arsehole. I believe I might be the arsehole for not siding with my wife and insulting her. Your wife deserves it. Your wife absolutely deserved that. I think she deserved more. If it were me in this situation, just saying that literacy clearly hasn't taught her basic manners, I don't know, man, I'd say more. Like, that's my mum in the situation. The wife obviously knows the entire extent of mum's situation there. The wife is being incredibly unreasonable and then attacks the mum for no reason at all. That came out of nowhere. That was a kill shot. That is despicable. I have a lot more to say about this wife, but I'm gonna go not the arsehole for this one, OP. Now in the comments, not the arsehole. Your wife sounds awful and should show your mum all the respect in the world. As many people say on this site, this is a massive red flag. Your wife clearly looks down on others and doesn't have respect for you or your family. Stealing the top comment to say OP, don't divorce her. Whatever you do, don't. She will get primary custody because she spends more time with the kids and you would have to pay child support and alimony. Try to get her to have a high-paying job and spend a lot of time with your kids for primary custody. This may be true in the US, but OP is in India. It's even more true for India. Stay-at-home mothers almost always get the alimony and kids. Alimony because a large majority of Indian women are housewives, and dowry is a norm, often against their wishes, and there are laws in place to protect them. Of course, this also means that there are women who are unfairly advantaged too. Even if his wife was working, he would still have to pay alimony. And regarding children, in Indian culture, it's assumed that mothers matter more to the kids than fathers. It not only means that culturally, only women are expected to drop their careers for kids and become a stay-at-home mother, but it also means that the fathers hardly ever get the custody of their kids in divorces. Divorces are also very uncommon. I personally don't know any divorced couple or have seen one in real life. I'm Indian. Not the arsehole. Too bad you didn't keep the kids with you so they could have enjoyed that time with their cousins. Maybe next time you take the kids and leave your wife at home because she obviously doesn't respect, for giving her that nice stay-at-home wife, life, or your mum? OP replies, I wanted to keep them with me there, but my wife was adamant about not letting them stay in such a place where she was insulted. Oh damn, she doesn't even respect or like where you come from. Is this the first time your wife undermined your mum? Do they have a great relationship? Anyway, not the asshole. And OP replies, my wife usually doesn't speak to my mum much because she feels my mum is a very typical 1960s housewife who only cares about others and not about herself. I don't push her to have a relationship with my mum because I don't want any fights breaking out and my mum getting hurt in the process. Your wife is a housewife and judging other women like that? Also, caring about others is not a bad thing. For all things, you need balance. Your mum is an amazing woman, but your wife sucks. Our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for letting my child climb on a rock? Hi, I'm a 34-year-old woman, and my 3 children are a 12-year-old boy, a 9-year-old boy, and a 7-year-old girl. My husband is a 35-year-old man. A couple weeks ago, we went on a trip to some historical sites in several countries in Europe, basically like a road trip. My husband had a terrible headache on the 4th day of our trip, so he stayed at the hotel while our children and I went to a dolmen. When we got there, my children were a bit bored, so I let them run around and play for a bit. There weren't a lot of people there, so they were not bothering anyone. And then my 9-year-old climbed on one of the boulders of the dolmen. He looked so proud of himself when he managed to climb up, so I wanted to take a picture of him. But then a girl, around 19 I'd say, walked up to me and sarcastically asked, do you let your kids climb on their grandparents' graves like that too? Needless to say, I got a bit angry and told her to mind her own business and said that a 5,000-year-old dead guy won't mind if a child climbs on a rock. Her face looked like I just killed a puppy in front of her and she walked away. When we got back to the hotel, I told my husband about it and he said that it's a bit tasteless to tell someone to climb on what is essentially a gravestone. I got mad because he wouldn't support me and undermined me in front of the children like that. I went to the bathroom where I called my sister to tell her what happened. She said that the girl shouldn't have approached me like that, but that I was also wrong for the way I responded to her. I told her that the girl was out of line for talking to someone that's older than her like that, and I hung up. It's been a couple weeks now, and it just hasn't been sitting right with me. I have been thinking that maybe I am the asshole, and I guess I can see why someone would see a dolmen as a grave. So am I the asshole for letting my child climb on a rock? Now in the comments, you're the asshole. I had to go look up what a dolmen is, but you're the asshole for letting the kid climb on that. It is clearly a thing with ritual significance, and they also look somewhat precarious. Like a lot of people climbing on them could topple them. You're also the asshole for thinking that she couldn't call you out on letting your kids climb a tomb because she happens to be younger than you. Even old people get called out when they do stupid crap. That totally depends on the culture of the area you're in. Here in the Netherlands, there are a lot of dolmen. We call them hoenbedden, and people, children and adults, climb on them and sit on them all the time while visiting them. Same with the burial mounds we have here. It's not considered tasteless and offensive at all here. In fact, I have very happy memories of climbing on and under our dolmen as a small kid, as a teenager, and as an adult. It's different if that specific location has been a sacred place continuously, but most Dutch people didn't know our dolmen were actually graves, and if they did, they robbed them. Though most were robbed before current societal memory. I should add that there are some organizations who do consider it disrespectful, but that's not the common Dutch consensus. It seems to be more a reaction to the shock and offense of foreign tourists towards the climbing than of our own cultural inclinations. Honestly, tourists shouldn't have their kids climb on things that are not designated for climbing, regardless of the significance. The significance and the response make it worse, but climbing on random crap is also just stupid and dangerous. She never mentioned seeing anybody else doing it either, just that she let her lone kid climb. You're the asshole. It's a historical site as well as a grave site. Your actions are exactly why historical sites are ruined and destroyed, and governments, archaeologists, and historical societies struggle to keep them safe. Like putting fences around them to keep people like you out. And one more thing. Your age means nothing when you are doing something wrong. You don't get a free pass from young people telling you that you are wrong just because you're older. You don't automatically gain respect either. I also like how you essentially want your husband to lie to you to make you feel like you were right. Sorry, if you made a mistake, the first person to tell you should be your significant other because they are the one that you should trust the most with these kinds of judgments. Instead, you got mad at him for not supporting you for being wrong. You have a lot to work on. And our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for yelling at my mum about replacing me with her new kid? I know it sounds bad, but hear me out. So I, 27 male, and my mum, 45 female, have never had a good relationship. My dad, 52 male, worked a lot of hours, so it was always just me and my mum. All she did was nag me constantly. It was always about that crap. She never listened to what I wanted. For example, she'd pack these really elaborate lunchboxes, and when she found out I was giving it to my friend, she got really upset, even though I told her before that I wanted normal foods. To make it worse, she guilt-tripped me by packing my friend his own lunch and dropped it off every morning when she drove me to school. It was a passive-aggressive stunt. Long story short, my dad and his co-worker clicked, things happened, and my mum freaked out and they divorced. I was 16 and wanted to live with my dad and my stepmom, who was way more chill. She let me live and didn't nag me about homework and stuff. My mum tried to get custody, but the judge let me decide. My dad and stepmom didn't make me contact her. A few years later, I changed my number for insurance stuff, moved out of state, and we lost contact. She was literally already married and had a kid, but she didn't tell me. It wasn't 11 years of no contact like people said, just a couple years out of touch, so she basically lied to me. Recently, my grandparents had their anniversary, and they somehow invited my mum even though she's the ex. I didn't think she would show up. She came in with her husband and a 5-year-old kid, my half-brother. My mum had married someone without telling me and had a kid. I was so upset that she hadn't even told me, I yelled at her. I was really hurt that she had replaced me with the perfect, well-behaved kid. She was going to pretend I didn't exist so her perfect life could continue. She threw a tantrum and left with her new family. My grandparents asked me to leave, but my dad and my stepmom had my back. They said that it was ridiculous that she hadn't told any of us that she got remarried and had a kid. My grandparents said that they knew and were invited to her wedding. Now my dad is mad at his parents, I'm mad at my mom, and my life has turned to crap. So Reddit, am I the asshole? Edit, I don't care that she remarried and had a kid. I care that she hid it from everyone. Jesus, she was a helicopter parent and didn't let me breathe my entire life, and guilt-tripped me on how she loved me so much when she didn't even care to look at me once during the anniversary party. It's not like she used to tell me that I was the light of her life or crap like that. It's not like I'm her son. Now I'm nothing to her because she has a new family and a new son that she can't mother hen the crap out of and then abandon when he's a real person instead of her perfect dress-up doll. Now in the comments, you're the asshole. What you describe sounds like normal parenting. Eat your breakfast, put on clean clothes, do your homework, go to bed, you have to get up in the morning. I wouldn't pack pretzels and mozzarella sticks for a kid's lunch either, and it sounds like your friend needed and enjoyed his lunch, and yet you were making it all about you. You have left out the details that explained why it's so awful that your mum nagged you about these things. With the details that you are giving though, it's hard to see what's wrong. Your dad cheated on your mum. You picked your dad's side because your stepmother didn't do any parenting. You and your father chose to drop out of the relationship. Your grandparents didn't. And then when your mum is invited to dinner, you scream about how she didn't tell you she was pregnant. You are the one who chose not to reach out to her for 5 years. You replaced her in your life, and now you're complaining that she's moved on? A 40-year-old woman isn't too old to think about kids. His contempt for his mum was oozing the entire post, even before he found out about her new family. Gee, no wonder why she didn't want him to be a part of her new life. You're the asshole, OP. I felt terribly for his mother after reading this post. He comes off as really spoiled and entitled, to be honest. Seriously, I don't get it either. She moved on. She left him alone. OP is going on 30 and acts like he expected his mum to be miserable in her loneliness. That's what got me. He's 27 and clearly still 13. That response is from a child, not a grown man. I bet he didn't have any parenting from his dad, and that is why he is so childish. You're the asshole. You don't get to go no contact and then be angry when they don't contact you. Oh my god, memory unlocked. In 2017, my sister went surprise no contact with my parents, then had the absolute gall to be mad when we didn't tell her that Nana died in 2019. She showed up to the funeral with my cousins, and I had to play messenger, and everyone reconciled somehow. Turns out 6 months after going no contact, she had unblocked their numbers, but told no one. It still baffles me, and one day I'll be brave or drunk enough to call her out on it. You're the asshole. I'm confused here. You picked the parent you wanted to live with, and did not hold up contact on your end. You moved, changed numbers, never bothered to give her the new one? Your passivity had a huge part in your estrangement, and then suddenly you get confused that you missed a major milestone. I get it. The reality of that half-sibling hurt, and maybe there was some part of you that expected her to always just wait for you, even if you had no intention of returning. And the realization that she moved on with her life, which by the way does not mean she stopped loving you, she just accepted your choices, even you made them passively, was like a bucket of cold water. But you were out of line, not her.